back to this special broadcast coming to you from the 20th session of the United Nations World Tourism Organization's Annual Assembly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight back into it. Mr. Maseba, tourism is not just about the numbers. The numbers of travelers visiting, the money generated thereof. It's about a role in a broader context. I mean, we mentioned this in the first part. Yesterday I landed in Livingston to a beautifully, freshly painted and built new terminal. The roads look gorgeous. I've seen new establishments spring up. The UNWTO clearly has been a catalyst, but how do you take this forward?
I think sustainability of what has been achieved is going to be a challenge. And I think that even the communities here are already saying we're very happy with the change that has come to Livingston as a result of the UNWTO, but would like this sustained. Would like our government to continue doing what they have been doing for us because obviously the perception at the moment by the people is that the government has done this because of the UNWTO. But as I said earlier on, this has been part of the government program to invest in tourism because it is a sector that can help create employment. As you know, Zambia has high numbers of unemployment, especially among the youths. But to keep this going forward, I want to believe that after the UNWTO, there will be lessons that will be learned, not just by the government, but by the people. But more importantly, I think that the issue of policy around tourism will be an issue that will be appreciated by the policymakers. And my hope is that going forward, looking at the resolutions that will come out of this conference, my hope is that I can take it up from there as Minister of Tourism to government to see how best we can ensure sustainability of what has been achieved and also how we can build tourism as a sector, and especially as it relates to policy, issues of connectivity, issues of easing up travel by tourists, and also just ensuring that when whatever we do, it is done in a sustainable manner.
Sustainability, such a big word, but it's so fundamental to an industry, and it's also one of the core fundamentals of the UNWTO. But actually there is about a bit of a misconception about sustainability, and it has more than one meaning in the tourism context.
Growth and sustainability are not a zero-sum game. More growth, managed the right way, approached with the right mindset, means better sustainability. More growth in the tourism industry means more revenues, and more revenues would be put into the preservation and conservation of the nature and the cultural heritage. That's how it should work. We should not see growth in a fearing way. We should embrace growth, and we should be up to the challenge of making growth and sustainability two sides of the same coin, as opposed to trying to work the game of balancing or competing with each other. And that's exactly the role of UNWTO. Maintain growth, but do it in a responsible and sustainable way that's good for the mankind, good for the environment, and good for the history and the culture of the place.
Well, beyond the General Assembly, really, what it has shown us is that if you attract a mega event, a conference of the order of the General Assembly, 1,200 delegates or so, it can change lives. Just like the World Cup in South Africa changed the lives of South Africans. One stadium in each province, new airport in OR Tambo, you can hardly recognize it from its old past, hospitality assets coming up and so forth. What has the General Assembly done for us? Same thing, perhaps on a lesser scale. But going forward, we must attract conference and business to this destination. We must attract exhibitions to this destination. It shouldn't be just about leisure. And I can share with you, it's not a secret, we have already bagged 2 or 3 conferences across the bridge. And it will be Roots Africa to look at destination accessibility in June next year, to look at civil aviation issues. In August, we intend hosting the Africa Blood Transfusion Conference, which will be 1,000 or so delegates. But we are leveraging with the same assets, the same structure that we acquired to establish a new vision on conferencing and mega eventing. And we are already seeing that the impact even on livelihoods in townships such as Chinotimba, that people are having to take leave of their homes temporarily for a week in order to make way for additional delegate accommodation. And they are charging something like $800 US per 3-bedroom home and that's per day. And that's extra income that they would not get if we didn't have that vision planted in the destination. So what I would hope going forward is that we close and we have a seamless sort of thought with Zambia here, where we see this destination going forward as a destination that can compete with Durban, that can compete with Cape Town, that can compete with Kigali, because these are the conferencing capitals of Southern Africa, and that can compete with even the Kenyan Convention Center, and we attract conferences. It must not just be about tourism. It must be a vision that sits at the apex in government, that we can attract conferences across sectors, in health, in communications, in each and every other sector, but with tourism obviously doing the branding. Beyond General Assembly, what do we take home? It's brand endorsement, it's global endorsement of the destination. It's now well known that it is safe, it can receive, it's hospitable, so let's spin that to attract more conferencing.
If you attract more conferences, you change livelihoods. Now, travel and tourism is more than just about the accommodation, it's the whole entire value chain. I mean, I take the Royal Livingston, for example, that's situated in a community that's been here 4 years. How do you get the community involved to be part of the tourism value chain so it doesn't just end with a tourist walking in here, staying in a fantastic hotel room and having a great view?
If I can just add on what, because I do understand and I get it with that. I think it's the investment in the infrastructure that will make sure that we sustain this
and it's also
tourism.
sustainable. I mean,
Exactly.
I just want to bring in something here. Minister,
Sure.
you mentioned the World Cup, and there has been criticism laid at the feet of South Africa on the concept of overinvestment. We have all these amazing stadia, but some of them are actually standing empty, being white elephants. How do you make sure that that sustainability pulls through?
I'm sorry to
No problem.
I think to maintain a legacy and to make it correct and
Because
right,
that's the word,
you should invest in what needs to be invested anyhow.
Yes.
And you use the event as an excuse and as an opportunity to do
Do
it.
that.
Yes.
You shouldn't invest just for the sake of that particular event.
Conference.
That's a wasted investment. We're not here to enjoy a good meeting and then say goodbye. We're here to make sure that we leave a mark and that people will remember that since that event, things have started to happen. That can only happen if the right infrastructure is judged.
Correct.
The meeting halls that were erected both in Victoria Falls and here in
Zambia.
Livingston will be serving as venues for next
Meetings
conferences.
and conferences.
If this would have been dismantled, that's a waste. If the airport would be done just as a showcase for that event and then it's done, that's a waste. Even I would go as far as saying the policy issues that Minister Masibo is just talking about. You know, this experiment of opening the borders in these, if it works for 1 week, why shouldn't it work for the whole year? You use these events as an excuse and as an opportunity to experiment and learn lessons, as she said.
It's exactly what it, I think what it is. It's
And
testing the
just to
environment.
pick from where Taleb has just left, we are in the habit, Africa, of attending everyone else's conferences and meetings outside Africa except our own. Now, I think it's high time that we went out there aggressively to bid and compete for exhibitions, for meetings. And I can give you a very classic example for the Republic of Korea. We went there for the 2011 General Assembly in September.
2 years ago. Yes.
2 years ago. They did not just have that as their main event of that week. They had everything else in Bhutan, from filming, meetings and exhibitions, and that's where the focus should be. I can share with you today that 30% of the world's conferences and exhibitions, because of the vision of this Korean government, are actually held in that country. So we must go out there and say, is MICE, meetings, incentives, conferencing and exhibitions going to be the future of Africa? Because we have everything to shock us, to shake us. And as you rightfully put it before, people don't come here to sleep in our hotels. We couldn't put up any better infrastructure than what is in Europe. They come here to experience our biodiversity, and that's the thing going for us in terms of sustainability. We must maintain it, market it, preserve it for future generations, but also leverage with it to attract the world.
Sir Richard.
And I think tourism is a non-consumption business. We mustn't be in the game of consuming. And development, when people speak about development, they always think that what you do is you destroy. Okay, and that's not the case in tourism. It is not a consumption business, it's a developmental business. And if you go down to your grassroots and you develop at those levels, what will happen is you'll end up with a sustainable organization. But what has to happen is that government have got to be standing next to you and they've got to deliver the infrastructure, the power, the roads, access, airports, airlift. Airlift for tourism is a big hindrance. And what you have to do is go into those organizations that are bringing the airlift and double it for the long term. We're not here for tomorrow. We are here for the next 25, 35 years. And if we take tomorrow as the benchmark, what will happen is that you will never do it. So if for 1 minute we turn around and say, well, I need to get a return out of my money immediately, you ain't going to be in.
About turning a quick buck.
No, exactly. We've been here 15 years. Yes, we make a profit. We make no excuse for that. Yes, we charge a lot of money to stay in the Royal Livingston. We make no excuse for that. If you can afford it, you must come and stay here. But we do have other offerings. And our guests, what they will do is they will come. They might be moneyed people, but when they experience the local community, what they then do is it goes to their heart. So they feel something. So in my view, what we are doing in tourism is we are exporting an experience. Okay. Now, if somebody comes and they experience it, what do? They reach into their pockets because they can, and they will provide access to money for those communities. Not just giving. We're not creating a begging bowl culture here. What we are doing is we are providing opportunities for those communities to be able to enter into a business of a sort. And if you can do that, then you've got the chain, then you've got the sustainability. And if we're all looking after what is out there in this river, at the end of the day, we'll all make money.
Let me just say something, just to pick it up from what the Secretary General said when he talked about wasteful expenditure for a conference, which is not sustainable and which does not benefit the people. I think that's a very valid point, and I know for a fact that many times governments hosts meetings, conferences, which basically benefits those that attend and not the people. And I think that both Zambia and Zimbabwe, we've been very mindful of that, especially that obviously the cost to host this has not been easy for both nations. It's quite high. And so we were very strategic, first of all, in the type of infrastructure that we had to put forward. For example, we're here at a 5-star hotel, Royal Livingston. It has electricity, it has water, it has everything. But even, of course, even before the general conference, it had all those facilities. But we tried to ensure that the issue, for example, of water and sanitation in the whole city should be improved upon. We tried to ensure that not only the main road, not just the airport where the Secretary General will land and the main road that he will use to get here should be done. We went into the community and put up that infrastructure. So, and beyond that, we also did trainings of the communities in the hospitality industry. As I speak now, we have a number of youths and women that have been trained in the hospitality industry. We also went into the security subsector to train community police. We also trained people in African cuisine. We trained extra guides, and we trained a number of people as a result of this, but knowing that even beyond this, they can use those skills.
It's an investment to the future.
So we tried to ensure that we spend money not just on a conference, because a conference, this is part of the conference. We're just talking, and most of these issues are known, you know, except that maybe they're not yet advertised enough. But we felt that this would be a good platform, really, to bring out these issues to governments so that policies can be better for the future. Also to get the community to appreciate tourism, that tourism can create money in their pockets and can make their lives better. And also to appreciate that Africa as a continent is rich in natural resources, and if properly harnessed, can actually help reduce poverty in Africa.
Minister, we're talking about the local communities from the perspective of creating jobs and running businesses. But what about local tourism? We talk about tourism, we expect that's our market from Asia, that's our market from the US, that's our market of Europe. But are we fostering an internal sense of local tourism?
In fact, that is one area which has helped us here in Zambia, and I'm sure even for Zimbabwe. Like I said earlier, many of our people look at tourism as for the foreigners to come and enjoy. You know, it's for the rich just to come and because obviously the pictures are always posh. You know, we're seated here with this backdrop with juice and, you know, so in a way, for us in Zambia, you would find that even most of the hotels, the people that would occupy the hotels would be the foreigners, the foreign tourists. But now that is changing. I was just being briefed by the manager for this hotel, because they've got 2 hotels, the Royal Livingstone and the Zambezi. And he was saying to me that in the last 6 months, the numbers of tourists that they've received in the Zambezi Sand have been domestic tourism, local tourists. And we see an influx of Zambians traveling, and everybody planning for, a holiday, and everybody wanting to come to the destination, even beyond the UNWTO. And even before this, we've had many conferences that have been taking place here. We've been fully booked. It's been difficult. Yeah. It's been difficult to find space here, even just for conferences, because for the last 3 months, we've had the private sector bringing all the different conferences just here at the destination. So I think that the hosting of this conference has actually created a platform for marketing tourism, for getting the public to appreciate what they have, for conservation purposes, but beyond that, just to promote the whole, domestic tourism. And for Zambia, I'm very, very sure, and even for Zimbabwe, that after this, we will see more of our own local people enjoying tourism and enjoying what the country has to offer in terms of the wildlife and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Ishti, but I want to talk also about affordability, and Mr. I'm going to throw this to you as well. When we look at lodges or institutions like the Royal Livingstone, as you say, it's on the high end of the market. If we talk about the average African, the average Zambian, Zimbabwean, South African even, how affordable are tourism destinations and experiences for our own people?
Let's first establish a principle very clear. A country that is not enjoyed by its own people cannot be enjoyed by anyone else. I mean, that's the principle that we must hold up high. It is very important for the people of the country to enjoy the assets. 2, it is wrong to assume that locals have less, in general, ability to afford to be in places where foreigners can be in. That may be correct at a certain level, but the transformation in the socio-economic structure of the African society, and I'm talking about Africa altogether, is tremendous. Nigerians are traveling, South Africans are traveling, Kenyans are traveling, North Africans are traveling, Zambians and Zimbabweans are traveling. I mean, this perception that travel is a domain of the non-Africans must be revisited. Africans are traveling, they're enjoying their countries, they're enjoying their continent, and many of them, not all of them, but many of them can afford to pay. 3, it is a duty and a responsibility of the businesses and the policies to make the offer so diversified. Not just for Africans, for everybody. We assume that only rich Europeans can come and stay here in Zambia and Zimbabwe. Well, some of them are backpackers and they would like to stay in places that are affordable. So to assume that tourism is, in general, with a capital T, is the domain of the rich is wrong to start with. And that, I think, answers the whole issue about being affordable or not. It must be affordable. And affordability is not the domain of a continent or another. Likewise, the diversity is appreciated by everybody.
Well, we Africans have always had a holiday culture. That's why every weekend we retreat to our farms, to our rural homes, to take a bit of respite from the hustle and bustle of urban life. But we have to also inculcate a culture of holidaying to destinations that are perceived to be expensive, when in fact they may not be expensive, because simply the business operators themselves may not be marketing some of the low season products to the mass markets. So we need to fix that. But that notwithstanding, I think also the creation of a middle class in itself is the answer to holidaying. And I cite China this year, $140 billion spent on travel and tourism by the Chinese. You do a research, you see that it is linked to the creation and the enlargement of the middle class. And we must also strive to make sure that we railroad our people into those classes and they begin to aspire to be prosperous. But if you look at tourism and travel, we must also inculcate it at primary level. We must introduce it in curricula of schools so that our people grow with it. They grow with this yearn and desire and aspiration to want to know their countries better, to want to visit, to want to be hospitable. But more importantly, I think in the last decade or so, has been the emergence of the African diaspora. People going out there in Europe, United States, we must teach them to come and holiday back at home, especially those assets that they had no access to prior to their departure, and create packages or on come back home campaigns where people come and experience the Victoria Falls, they experience Livingstone and so forth. I think it's super critical that we begin to do that. But I just want to cap off by chatting about the value chain itself. You couldn't attract investment, even business tourism or investment in any sector in a country, if you don't start by defining the tourism value chain. And it's visit, trade, invest. There's nobody who will make a decision in any country to trade or to invest unless if he visits. Yes. And therefore there are areas in our economy that we are not measuring or capturing properly, and these are areas linked to business tourism, where there's a lot of business reconnaissance trips, people coming to visit, but they are not visiting specifically for leisure. They are coming because they are reconnaissing and checking business opportunities, trade opportunities, but they only do that when they visited, and we must cater also for that market.
So Richard, we're running out of time, and I'm going to give you the last word. You mentioned business tourism. How do we turn that into leisure, and how do we turn leisure into business? And how do we make sure that our offerings cater for everyone?
It's a difficult question to answer because there are certain sectors of the market that will only go to certain areas. We understand that, and we're with it. We've got two offerings here, and if you have money, no matter where you are and from what walk of life, and you are able to pay it, you must be given access to that. So you must be able to go in and experience that asset. But again, I take it that one must also have a local rate where the families can come. When you're an emerging family and you have small children, you don't have the money to go to these other properties that cost a lot. I'm not so sure about that, but it depends on where you are. But yes, to the Royal Livingstone. But you must still be able to experience the asset of the Victoria Falls. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're coming to see. You want to put your head on a bed, we get that. But you also want to go and experience all of this. And there's a lot that goes with it. There are train rides, there are boat trips, there are walks. You can do, so there has to be some kind of scale available for local people and international. But domestic travel is way and above more for us in terms of volumes than international travel. And we are very, very aware of the domestic traveller in all our assets that we've got across Africa.
Well, on that very positive note, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Well, that's all the time we have for you on this special broadcast from the beautiful Zambezi River. Until next time, it's goodbye and thank you for joining us.